I'm Akhenaten, The Golden Horizon, by Malkata. Welcome to Divine Oracle, Unwritten Words Behind My Novel. This audio essay series serves as the historical ledger, the structural laboratory, and the deep research chronicle behind the architecture of my historical novels. In this episode, we shift our gaze to ancient Egypt and the life of one of the most fascinating pharaohs of the 18th dynasty, Akhenaten. In this episode, we explore the father of Akhenaten, Amenhotep III, the Magnificent. To truly understand Amenhotep III, later known as Akhenaten, we must dive into his family lineage, examining his father, mother, and siblings, as well as the intimate daily life of the royal household. Above all, we explore what it meant to hold the supreme title of Pharaoh, to live and breathe as a living god ruling over the united Nile of Upper and Lower Egypt. Amenhotep III, the Magnificent, ruled Egypt for nearly 4 decades, the 1390 to 1353 BCE or 1388 to 1351 BCE during the 18th dynasty. His reign is universally recognized as the absolute apex of ancient Egyptian imperial power, economic prosperity, architectural scale, and artistic refinement. While his son Akhenaten would later fracture Egypt's religious and political identity, Amenhotep III presided over a golden age of peace, diplomacy, and divine kingship. 1. Rise to power and lineage. Amenhotep III inherited an empire that was already secure and wealthy, thanks to the military expansion of his grandfather, Thutmose III, and the prosperous stabilization of his father, Thutmose IV. Royal marriage. To solidify his legitimacy, he married Queen Ti, a woman of non-royal birth, the daughter of Uya, a wealthy provincial landowner military official, and Tuya. Tia became one of the most powerful and influential queens in Egyptian history, frequently depicted on equal scale with the king himself on monuments, and acting as a trusted political advisor. Foreign diplomacy marriages. To maintain peace across the Near East, Amenhotep III practiced extensive dynastic diplomacy, marrying foreign princesses from allied superpowers such as Mitanni, Babylon, and Arzawa. However, he notably never sent Egyptian princesses abroad, asserting Egypt's supreme status. From ancient times, no daughter of the king of Egypt has been given to anyone. 2. The Golden Age of Diplomacy, the Amarna Age Genesis. The latter half of the 18th dynasty is often called the Amarna Age because of the political foundation laid during Amenhotep III's reign. The Amarna Letters, while most famous for being found at Akhenaten's capital, the diplomatic archives, written in cuneiform on clay tablets, reveal that the network of international correspondence, Pax Egypti, was firmly established by Amenhotep III. Gold is dirt. Foreign rulers constantly wrote to Amenhotep III begging for gold, which Egypt possessed in vast quantities from its Nubian mines. One famous letter from the king of Babylon complains that the gold sent to him was alloyed with silver, noting that in Egypt, gold was more plentiful than dust. 3. Monumental architecture and art. Amenhotep III was one of the most prolific builders in Egyptian history, commissioning projects on a staggering scale that reflected his growing association with the living sun god. The Colossi of Memnon, these two massive 60-foot stone statues of Amenhotep III, once guarded the entrance of his vast mortuary temple on the west bank of Thebes. At the time, his mortuary temple was the largest ever built in Egypt, though almost entirely destroyed later by floods and stone recycling. The Temple of Luxor. He substantially expanded the Temple of Luxor, constructing the magnificent sun court and colonnade adorned with towering papyrus bundle columns. The Temple of Salab, Nubia, far to the south in Nubia, he built a major temple dedicated to Amun-Ra and his own deified living self, reinforcing imperial control over the frontier. Artistic style. Art under Amenhotep III shifted toward extreme refinement, elegance, and sensuality. Sculptures often featured soft, rounded facial features, heavily stylized almond-shaped eyes, and subtle smiles, a stylistic bridge that directly influenced the hyper-stylized art of his son's later Amarna revolution. 4. The cult of the living Aten and divine kingship. Towards the latter part of his reign, Amenhotep III subtly began shifting theological focus away from the traditional dominance of the priesthood of Amun in Thebes towards solar theology, specifically focusing on the Aten, the sun disk, as a visible manifestation of divine power. The Sed festivals. He celebrated 3 grand Sed festivals, Jubilee festivals meant to rejuvenate the king's physical and divine powers after 30 years of rule, and repeated thereafter. During these jubilees, he heavily emphasized his own divinity, effectively casting himself not just as the son of Amun, but as a living god on earth. This theology did not destroy traditional religion the way his son's later reforms did, but it laid the exact ideological groundwork and bureaucratic infrastructure that Amenhotep IV Akhenaten would radically radicalize. 5. Family, succession, and the royal court. Amenhotep III and Queen Tia had several children. Crown Prince Thutmose, the eldest son, who was a high priest of Ptah in Memphis, tragically predeceased his father. Amenhotep IV Akhenaten, the surviving younger son who ascended the throne, initially ruling as Amenhotep IV before shifting entirely to the worship of the Aten and moving the capital north. Key officials. His administration was anchored by brilliant viziers and architects, most notably Amenhotep, son of Hapu, a legendary scribe, architect, and wise man who was eventually deified after his death, a rare honor for a commoner, and Aparul, the northern vizier in Memphis. 6. Death and burial, Valley of the Kings, WV 22. Amenhotep III died around his 38th or 39th regnal year. He was buried in a magnificent sprawling tomb in the western Valley of the Kings, tomb WV 22. Though looted in antiquity, the tomb's layout and fragments of its wall paintings show it was one of the most sophisticated burial sites of the New Kingdom. His mummy, discovered later in the cache at KV 35, reveals an older man who suffered from severe dental wear, arthritis, and illness toward the end of his life, despite his glorious artistic and imperial legacy. Amenhotep III and his family. Amenhotep III and his great royal wife, Queen Tia, had a large and influential family. While Amenhotep III's 38 to 39-year reign was a period of unprecedented stability and wealth, the fate of his children set the stage for the dramatic religious and political upheaval of the late 18th dynasty, most notably the Amarna period. Historical and archaeological records, including royal monuments, statues, and mummy analysis, reveal details about his children. 1. Crown Prince Thutmose, the lost heir. Role: the eldest son and designated heir to the throne. Career: Prince Thutmose served as a high-ranking priest of Ptah in Memphis, reinforcing the royal family's close political and religious ties to the northern administrative capital. Fate: he tragically predeceased his father. His death changed the course of Egyptian history, as it cleared the path for his younger brother to eventually take the throne. A poignant testament to his memory is the famous limestone cat sarcophagus, or mummy of a cat, dedicated by Thutmose, discovered at Saqqara. 2. Amenhotep IV Akhenaten, the successor. Role: the younger son who eventually succeeded his father as Amenhotep IV before radically changing his name, ideology, and the nation's capital to worship exclusively the sun disk, the Aten. Impact: initially ruling alongside or stepping into the vast bureaucratic machinery left by his father, Akhenaten dismantled traditional polytheistic structures, abandoned Thebes and Memphis, and instituted the world's first recorded state monotheism or henotheism. 3. Sidamen, the eldest daughter and queen. Role: Sidamen was the eldest daughter of Amenhotep III and Tia. As her father's reign progressed and he celebrated his royal jubilees, said festivals, Sidamen was elevated to the status of great royal wife queen around his 30th regnal year. Significance: this practice of royal father-daughter marriage was a traditional manifestation of divine kingship, emphasizing the king's regeneration and tying the royal bloodline tightly to his female offspring. She was heavily featured in art and possessed her own magnificent estate, with stunning furniture and grave goods found in the famous cache of her grandparents, Yuya and Tujia, KV 46. 4. Isis, the secondary princess queen. Role: another daughter of Amenhotep III and Tia, Isis was also elevated to the status of queen consort late in her father's reign, much like her older sister Sidamen. Significance: her name reflects the deep traditional religious framework of her parents' era, contrasting sharply with the radical religious shifts her brother Akhenaten would later enforce. 5. Amenhotep and Nebeta. Role: younger daughters of Amenhotep III and Ta. Evidence: they are famously depicted alongside their parents on massive works of art, most notably the colossal statues found at Medinet Habu and the recovered fragments of family monuments. Nebeta's imagery was occasionally modified or omitted in later years, leading some scholars to debate her ultimate fate, though she remained a prominent royal princess during her youth. 6. Smenkhare and Tutankhamun. Note on succession. While historical consensus traditionally views Akhenaten's immediate successors, Smenkhare and Tutankhamun, as Akhenaten's sons, are younger brothers, genetic and archaeological studies suggest Tutankhamun was almost certainly a son of Akhenaten. This makes them the grandsons of Amenhotep III and Queen Ta, carrying the royal Argead 18th dynasty bloodline through the turbulent final chapters of the Amarna era and back to traditional orthodoxy. The turning point of history. Prince Amenhotep's elder brother, the firstborn crown prince Thutmose, mysteriously disappeared from historical records during the third decade of his father's reign, having predeceased Amenhotep III. In that fateful turning point, the course of Egyptian history was forever altered. Prince Amenhotep would eventually cast aside his birth name to become Akhenaten, dismantling the traditional multi-god religious system to establish what is widely considered the world's first recorded state-level monotheism. This is the very essence of the Golden Horizon. Why did he do it? Such a radical shift required an astonishing realization and a staggering ambition. What caused this profound transformation, and what actually happened in Prince Amenhotep's life after he ascended the throne to become pharaoh? The key to this lies in a text commonly mistitled as the Book of the Dead. Its original true title is the Book of Coming Forth by Day, the ultimate book of ascension. The Golden Horizon explores this journey through the underworld, tracing its evolution from the ancient pyramid texts, through the coffin texts, and ultimately to the Book of Coming Forth by Day, decoding the profound secrets of the ancient Egyptian soul. Step back in time to the 18th dynasty of ancient Egypt's New Kingdom, entering the grand house of Pharaoh Amenhotep III and his majestic palace, the Dazzling Aten, to uncover the mysterious power of the pharaonic ascension ritual. New episodes drop from time to time, leading up to the epic conclusion of this mysterious ascension journey to become the pharaoh of the lands of the Upper and Lower Nile. Each chapter delivers a tight, hyper-focused 15 to 45-minute cinematic historical drama set across ancient Egypt, from Memphis to Thebes, Saqqara, Aswan, to the Valley of the Kings, and the ultimate destination, the land of Aten, where the sun disk rises. Your perfect escape into ancient Egypt's mysteries, legends, underworld, and high magic, woven with a touch of romance and diversity. Experience more. Watch the cinematic video trailer. Listen to the full novel now. Curated playlists. Golden Horizon playlist. Crimson Rose playlist. Blue Dolphins playlist. A Great Argead Saga, Alexine, Volume 1, Telesius playlist, Volume 2, Sacred Band playlist. Divine Oracle Unwritten Words Behind My Novel playlist. Subscribe to follow this unexpected ritual journey of a young prince as he rises to become pharaoh and transforms into Akhenaten. Comment below.